Hi folks, I'd like to record a video tonight just basically giving an idea about a way you could make your own magic cards. So for example, I've just got into the game of Frostgrave, which as of this moment comes with no official magic cards, although there are some coming. But this is a handy way of making your own using a really cool bit of software called the Magic the Gathering set editor. And you can tell by quickly looking at what's on the table, it makes custom Magic the Gathering cards. The one difference, of course, is you don't have the proper Magic logo on the back, and they obviously don't correlate to normal Magic the Gathering cards. But I've created these ones for personal use only, for using with the game Frostgrave now. I'm midway through making a set of 80 cards to cover every single option for the game. But you could also make these for other games where you couldn't get hold of the Magic cards, like in Games Workshops. Some of the fancy 8th edition cards were actually always out of stock 2 minutes after they came out. And you could go on eBay and buy a set, usually for a vastly inflated price. But I found that using this to make my own cards was a better way, and worked out to be quite useful, quite powerful. Equally, you could use them for other things like cue cards to have against a unit if you've got a poor memory. Sort of just a way of keeping things on the table so you can quickly see, like on an Age of Sigmar, almost putting the war scroll information in a box with a picture that suits your the card you're trying to create. And I thought I'd do a quick tutorial which would show you how I go about making these and what steps you go through to do it, and see if anyone finds it of any use. So first of all, I'm just going to switch across to my computer to show you how you start. And one thing I must say before I carry on though, obviously these are for personal use, and I've found the images on the internet from what I can see as free resources available through Google Images. Now, these are for me, I'm not going to sell them, I have no intention of sending them out in any form of commercial sense, so just be very wary when you create things. Make sure that you don't break copyright rules or whatever that goes for your region. I found these pictures on the internet, hopefully, but they're only for me, and that's it. Right, so I'm going to switch to the computer and I'll show you how I go about making them, and hopefully you'll be able to make your own. Okay, so first thing you need to do is get yourself a copy of the Magic Set Editor, which is available on open source on the internet. If you just type in that, actually you can see the address there to go and pick it up off SourceForge. Pick it up, download it, totally free, and get it installed in your PC. Now, when you're creating a set for the first time, obviously you won't have a last open set, so I've created a set that's there for Frostgrave, but don't think it can be for anything really. So let's just do a new set. So if I start from scratch, click on new, you'll see that obviously you get a bunch of Magic the Gathering predefined cards, because this is what it's for. You won't get the backs printed out for you though, because they don't want you using these in any way that could make it, forging the original cards. So you can only have the fronts. So I use generally the sort of modern style cards, but there's loads of options. So that's something else I've done before. So you'll get things like this. By quickly clicking around, you can change things. You can put different colours in. You can hybridize the colours, and you can have all kinds of weird effects by playing with these traditional sort of Magic the Gathering style colour schemes. Let's pick something that's not quite as bizarre. So if I want to do, say, black and white in some kind of mix, so you see you've got white on one side and black on the other, I could do that. And then essentially on the top bar I can give what I want a logical name. So in my case I tend to do, let's just do something for I'm doing something for Frostgrave, so I might say, actually I'll make something up, but let's just say I'm making a generic card for a wizard which doesn't exist as a standard class, and I could call it Cast Fish. Now if anyone knows of a game where you can, where you can cast a spell called Cast Fish, that'll be really fantastic. And then let's just say I wanted to now of course the thing to do is to try and find a cool picture that goes with what I'm going to do. If you go to Google Advanced Image Search and look for things like fantasy art, you can do things like search for all kinds of specific information. So on this, I think the interesting one on here as well is you can filter it for free to use, share or modify. So that will give you the ability to save something if you did want to send it out to friends and anybody and his dog. Maybe even potentially sell them. I suppose you could do it, provided you do the commercially ones. This is one way of doing it. Of course, if it's just for yourself, you could choose not to do this. You could just find anything. But that's between you and Mr. Copyright. So let's just pick something as an example. Quick flick down the page. We could look for, let's just say, my cast fish spell, which is rather bizarre. I might want to have this table. So, of course, I right click on it. I save the image. And I stick him somewhere, like I'll put him on my desktop. So if I go there then, come out of that, double click that, on the load image page. For some reason double click isn't working. That's better. Here's one I prepared earlier. So hence go is in the picture. You can then edit it so that it puts it the size you would like it to be. If it's too small, you can, like if the frame doesn't get the picture you want, you can just put it on custom size and remove the fixed aspect. More often than not, actually, it still looks pretty good. So play with it based according to what you want, and you can sharpen it and do all these cool things. But if I put that in there, so my cast fish spell, maybe I should say cast dinner as it's a table. So, or maybe let's do this properly. I'm going to have summon dinner. Okay, then I can do things that might be irrelevant. So generally, if like when I was doing Frostgrave cards, I might do something like it's an area of effect spell, for example. And then down here I can put in my spell description or whatever it is I'm trying to write about. So it could be summons a plate of fish and a table. And of course, the more words you put in, just to make the example, I'm just going to do this, it will scale it down so that it starts to fit the size of the thing. So if you put lots and lots of words in, it will suddenly start getting smaller font for you. So there you go. So you can put quite a lot of information in there. Let's get rid of all of the junk though. And that's it. Now, once you've finished your card, so you then, it goes in there and it comes out. The rarity card, you can change it to a colour. I just leave that in there and pick the same one usually for everything. And then once you've done a card, if you want to save if it's a card that, like I say, it's a lot of common text that you'll use over and over again, you can either do add a card and it'll start from scratch, or you could do copy and then paste. You'll make another copy of that one, and you might want to change it and call it summon pudding or whatever you want to do, and take it from there. Right, so now I'll move on to what I do next, which is back off the PC. So just a further update. So let's just say I've created 9 cards and I want to then start making these things into real cards. So the first thing you need to do is to print them. So one thing I would recommend is you do a quick print preview. If you've got, say, let's just say you're doing Frostgrave and you've made 80 cards, you can actually select the cards you want to preview, so you'll see them as they would be. Now obviously I've just copied the same card 9 times. If I had 80, I could actually print them out in order I want to. So if I know, for example, I want to play, I've created my characters and I just want to have some cards first, I could print them in the order that I want to actually create them, so that's an advantage to me at the time. Because the one thing I will say is making these cards does take a bit of time and effort. So unless you've got an extreme amount of self-patience going through all 80 of them, say for Frostgrave in one go, it can take a while. So you could be slightly more choosy, or you might have made a mistake on one, or one didn't print properly, or you damaged one, or it doesn't laminate, as we'll come to later. Then you can just print the ones you need. And as you see, when you print them, it'll give you always tick the put space between in, so it makes it easier to cut. You'll get a page that looks a bit like this, which shows you what the thing will look like. You can double check it. It's a good place as well, I think, when you, especially if you've got a lot of information in there, and if you've been cutting and pasting, it's just a quick final check to make sure you haven't made any mistakes. So read through each card, check that they're right, check the pictures are scaled correctly, make sure you're comfortable with it, because, as we'll see, if you're going to print this, there's a couple of things I'd recommend. The first thing is to choose the correct type of paper you're going to print on with a bit of care. I started printing off the first ones that I did, and I think the video camera separate to film them, but I printed on a slightly lower quality paper, and whereas they look good when they print off, they are slightly dark, especially on an inkjet printer. So eventually I sort of threw them all away, and I've switched instead to printing on photo paper or glossy print paper. It's so cheap to get now. You can buy 100 sheets of this stuff for, sort of in England, about £10–11. It's worth every penny because the quality once you've laminated them stands off the page. Otherwise they can look a little bit dull. Some of the colours look better than others because they're brighter. Brighter colours generally work. The darker you go in your image, it doesn't necessarily look quite as good. Although, if you use the quality paper, pretty much you won't be disappointed. So don't skimp on your paper. Basically, spend the extra couple of pounds, print them on photo paper, and make sure you've got plenty of ink. Buy the cheap stuff. On that case. Okay, so once you've done that, I'll switch back to the camera because you should have a bunch of printed out images, and I'll probably use, for example, the ones I've created for Frostgrave.